between IABD, KPM Artists, and SGA Management, Sheffield, Francine Sheffield, Kristopher McDowell, and of course IABD. And I really want to just first just shout out the staff that has been really working hard on getting this series together, as well as Kristopher and Francine. Today, I'm really excited about this conversation with two women who I just adore. They are amazing women who are in the dance field, who, gosh, their reputations precede them. Their artistry is amazing. They're just great people to know, to love, to understand, to work with, to collaborate, all that. All of that in a bag of chips, as we would say. That is Hope Boykin and Marjani Forte Saunders, and we share the same last name. Hey, girl. But I am here to talk to them today, as you heard in this kind of opening conversation and song, money, money, money. Will it be the same? We are obviously dealing with a global pandemic, and all of our livelihoods are at stake. And I really wanted to just shout out and sit down and have a conversation with these two women, because they have been on the curve and I think front runners when it comes to innovation, and particularly how they are doing what they do in the field. So Marjani, Hope, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can we hear them? Can they, you guys can unmute for a moment. Yep, Marjani, you want to unmute, and Hope?
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, there we go.
Great, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Hi, everyone.
There you go. Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. So I'm going to actually forego reading your bios, because I think everyone can Google you, YouTube you. They can find you, on your websites. And if you haven't done so, do so. Their bios are long and amazing and full of some really great work. So we can take the time to do that. You need to certainly do that to get to know these women. So we're going to jump right into this conversation. And I'm going to start right with Marjani. And we had asked them to kind of give us some prompts about some of discussion, some questions around this discussion today. And so here we go. Question number one. Marjani, how do we build functioning, culturally rooted, avant-garde networks that keep us employed and innovating? And this is certainly before internet. We're talking Chitlin Circuit, Harlem Renaissance. So actually, let me take one step before you answer that question to guide the audience. We're going to talk about money, of course, money, 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 but money past, money present, and money future. So you all have some context about where we're going with this conversation. So again, going back to the question I just asked Marjani, and then we'll go right over to Hope as well to answer this too. How do we build functioning, culturally rooted, avant-garde networks that kept us employed and innovating before the internet? So Chitlin Circuit, Harlem Renaissance. Could you talk a little bit about that history?
Yeah, I think some of the peril that we find ourselves in, sort of in a larger cultural sphere as Americans, is this like tendency to be ahistoric and to not look at like how not just communities of color, but specifically Black folks have been innovating and surviving and even thriving culturally in this country in the face of lack. In terms of like resources and materials and things like that. And so when we can stop being ahistoric, ideally, and we can look at some of the methods or strategies of organizing, which may have just been like, yo, I'm gonna be at such and such, or even being nimble enough, being available enough, being still enough to show up in the fly. Like, how do those things teach us about best case scenarios, about the best positions to be in? Like, here we are in a time where it doesn't serve us to have extremely hierarchical organizations. It doesn't serve us to have super thick bureaucracies to weave through, because in moments of tragedy, we can't be nimble. And so there's a lot to learn, I think, from cultured communities across the country about how to be nimble. And a lot of that storytelling I offer is in our history. That's where that question was coming from.
Thank you. Thank you. Hope, any response to Marjani's statement and maybe some thoughts?
Yes, I think too, as far as history is concerned, just personally, I did an apartment purge. I actually hired someone to come and help me get things out, and I found a big envelope of some older Alvin Ailey programs and documents and things. And I found a program from 1962 with Carmen de Lavalad's name in it, and the company had the Ailey company had gone to Jakarta. And I'm thinking, how did they get there in 1962 without YouTube, without without someone offering? I mean, there had to be a way that we function, and this particular time that we're in, word of mouth was the way we did it. So how do we continue? How do we bring that back in? I understand exactly and agree with Marjani, and this is not a but how do we go back to making sure that our word, the way we pass things on, even though we have to move forward with this technology, or we'll be left behind in a certain way. But there is a different approach. There's a different heart that goes into moving something forward in a time, when you look back at history and how people's names were discovered, how Nina Simone traveled the world, how Josephine Baker became like, when I think about, even in the Harlem Renaissance, how James Baldwin, made his way to France. And I'm sorry, I said James Baldwin and Harlem Renaissance, but Duke Ellington's music, surpassed all these things. There's got to be this word of mouth, this ear, this thing that we are constantly enforcing, instead of just sitting into, let me post it. I mean, we have to post, but we also have to do that other legwork. And I think I'm finding that we have to do the legwork even more now that we're stuck in this limited space. I mean, it's been a struggle to try to figure out how to function and how to move as this space continues to feel like it's shrinking a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting that you raise this, because this does talk about and kind of reminds me of our ways of communication, right? And so the connection piece, do you feel that there's a difference then in the way that in the past, the connections of how we brought the art to versus now or future? That just kind of makes me think about, I'm over 50, so I can kind of go back to rotary telephones, right? And that I remember my first computer, like that's my era. I remember Radio Shack, big old box, and so when I think about, kind of growing up, and then the means of communication, and particularly in art, in our art form, and, connection, there's a difference. Do you think, I mean, can you identify or maybe talk a little bit about the difference that you've experienced past versus now versus where we might be going in the future as it relates to, the communication and connection of just the creation of art?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think, Denise, it's funny, as you were saying the difference, and I just had like this super intense voice, like, well, this is the same. And I think the thing that is the same is the way that I would say Blackness continues to transcend mediums. Like whatever the medium is, whatever the pathway of communication is, we tend to transcend it. And I totally experienced that this weekend on on a big Zoom call like this with a bunch of artists of dance gathering with Onye Azuzu. And was organized by Kudu, forgive me as I work to pronounce his last name, Olukeku, in Nigeria. And there were just all these incredible artists of the diaspora. And once we got through the awkwardness of this particular platform, what happened just in being together, just in sharing music together, was absolutely like transcendental. It was just so deep to me, or transcendent, excuse me. And so I think there's a lot of differences to be had in terms of the actual medium itself, but there's a relationship that I think we have to the moment, arguably the spirit, to rhythm, that tends to transcend those things by going through them and by, engaging them with deep critique and rigor, and then the innovation that comes out of all of that. So I think I'm not sure if I fully answered your question, because all I could think about was what was the same.
I agree with you. I think, yes, I agree with you. I think it's the methodology, right? And has that had any bearing on the shift in which we do what we do, the practice of?
Yeah.
I think maybe that's what I'm thinking too.
And I think community, feeling isolated, feeling competitive, feeling like there's only money for this group, or there's only money for this type, versus someone else helping you. I mean, I am in a position where I didn't have to apply for the AIBD help, but I could send a friend to your grant application who received something from you. And to me, that's not me being selfish, but that's sharing in the community. We didn't have a choice. I want her dance school to continue on. She has to pay rent. She's got to do these classes for her students. But if I forget that, as simply as forget, not try, but if I forget that I'm not on this road alone, then we continue to build up. Oh, I can't make it to this performance. I can't choreograph this. Let me call Marjani. She's in California. She can do, I think you're still in California. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm okay. We can get back to the city.
But I was thinking, but I'm like she can do it. She's there. That's the community that I think that's so important, that that will change that's forcing us to maneuver now, because we can be one track. I mean, I know I am. I'm thinking I'm there. What are the steps? What's the timing? What's the thing? And then you're not focused necessarily on bringing other people in with you.
Yeah.
Very true. Wow. Okay. This is great. And so when you think, I want to go back a little bit and just dig a little into the question though, and center it, I guess, around funding and money. So the networks, you mentioned, Marjani, this call that you were on. Can you talk a little bit about, or do you have any history, with some of those folks that were on the call that would relate to, I guess, the functioning, culturally rooted, but were there discussions about, our resources and what was happening in the past and currently now, present, moving into future? Were there any discussions around how this group was supporting each other or might continue to support each other in that way? Mm-hmm. I'm kind of digging into this whole other thing that you were doing, so I apologize, but you brought it up. So I was like, oh, well, wait a minute.
Like, who's organizing around this? No, that's a good question. No, that didn't come out in this particular thing. I think we were all just sort of licking our wounds and being together.
Okay.
And playing, which is like super essential to what we do as innovators, as artists. So we were playing together.
Okay.
But I think there are conversations that are not new that we've been having with the person, to answer your question, who brought me into that was Disabella Grimes, who used to dance a long time ago for Rennie Harris. He's a choreographer. So you know Disabella.
Yeah.
Sabela's dope. And he's also here and a longtime friends with my partner, composer Everett Saunders. And so, yeah, long story short, Sabela was like, get on this call, girl. And I was like, okay. And I think what was dope about that is that Sabela and his partner, who I work with, Mina Murugesan, who's a media designer, and just like, there's just like a cluster of network who's been talking before COVID-19 about how to move in abundance as a people. So how to work in a tight network, or how to reference each other, how to drop each other's names, how to be in conversation with one another, not just about the art, but about the strategies in making the art, the strategies in surviving and thriving in this climate or in this environment, which is already not a little, which is already quite hostile and inhumane in its very structure, right? And so we've been talking for a long time about how to do that work. And a lot of it was really, I love that you mentioned word of mouth, Hope, because a lot of it was rooted in that and sharing. I'm coming, baby, here I come. This is my life right now. Meetings in my kids' room. A lot of it was based on drop my name. Let's work together. How does the work, even if it might come out under one name, how do we elevate and talk about the idea that this work, Memoirs of a Unicorn solo, is an ensemble work. So you see one dancer, but there's a group of artists that are making it happen. You know, how do we talk about collaborative ideation? Adrienne Marie Brown, who gives us that term to talk about it. You know, how do we collectivize all of these collectives, skeleton architecture? You know what I mean? How do we continue thinking about our work as being abundant and including many voices so that we don't buy into this idea of scarcity?
And each of you have your own business, right? And so with your businesses, thinking again, I'm going to go past here for a moment. What made you start? Like what pushed you into the zone? Because you mentioned collaboration and word of mouth. So at some point there were some influences and or people or just a decision that you made to, connect through your particular art form with a business. Can you talk a little bit about that from past? Like what was that? What pushed you? And Hope, why don't you start off?
Sure. Mine was super easy. I was called for a commission, and we want you to make this work, and here's some money to make this work. So that's a blessing already. And you have this amount of money. You need some dancers, hire some dancers. Well, how am I going to hire dancers and pay dancers and it be legal? And then I not pay $1 million in tax at the end of the day. So at that point, I think you could pay people, maybe it was $599 without them having to pay tax on it. So I tried to get dancers who were in college, some students. I got dancers who were semi-professional, maybe, were making money, but not as much money, still keeping them in the same range. And then I remember I hired 4 professional dancers. So there were 4 people who paid real tax. I think I might have given them $2,000 for the whole rehearsal performance process, like not even a day or a week, but tote flat. And then there were those students who probably did the bulk of the work because they were in the core, more or less, and they got less, but I was able to have a bunch of them. And the way to do it was to walk in with an accountant. How do I do this? They fill out the W-9s. It was necessary for me to make the work and do the business. And then I had to, figure out who was going to do the costumes. Oh, they cost too much. Well, I can make that. And so I bought a sewing machine. And then I paid someone a consultant fee who showed me how to cut a pattern. And so everything was out of necessity, not necessarily because I was founding something. I just needed not to go to jail for mismanagement of money and doing things incorrectly. So I had some people who supported me. They were like, we'll help you with this, get an account, get an LLC. Here's how you do it. And then don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, was really how it started. because I mean, I always loved the idea of choreographing and directing from the front of the room, but knowing all the other aspects of it have been lessons that I've learned, but it really was out of necessity to make sure that I did not falter and suffer imprisonment for, I'm being corny now, but these are facts. Learning how to manage your money and on that side is huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, because you.
Yes, I do. Marjani, what about you? You're on mute. Unmute yourself.
Someone has to unmute her. Yeah.
Oh, nope, she's still unmuted. There you go.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah, the business part. Yeah, definitely a byproduct of needing to do right, not get in trouble. We were talking about these idea of networks, and I just feel like this is where particularly IABD, like is so essential and such important legacy or lineage is like part of the platform that I would argue both myself and Hope had is that we dance for these monumental companies at a time when companies were really being supported, where that structure was really something viable, something that could stand. And having that platform, for me, like having the platform of Urban Bushwoman and the relationships from touring with that company for a little over 5 years, gave me a lot of insight into how organizations function and how my work on a smaller level, might work, like how I could think about this a little bit more critically. And so understanding, Urban Bushwoman's practices and the way that folded into how the business functioned, but from e-blast to network building to fundraising, God, you name it, even down to the very rehearsal room, had everything to do with what it is how I'm working right now.
Okay, thank you.
Say one more thing.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I remember walking down the street. I ran into Jawale Willa-Jozola, who's the founder of Urban Bushwomen, and we were near Lincoln Center. I just can see us walking. I don't really know when, and it was sunny. And I remember her telling me, everything you will pay someone else to do in your company, you need to know how to do yourself.
That's right.
And I have never forgotten that. Now, she said, you don't have to file your taxes. You just need to know that they're filing them properly. You don't have to do all of this, but you need to know that they're being handled. And I will never forget that. I remind her every year that she told me that. and it's helped me because I do have my hand in things just enough to make sure that I know what's going on.
That's right. For sure.
Yeah. Well, I'll even drop a Oprah mantra here. And I was watching one of her shows one day, and she was like, "I still sign my checks." She's like, "I don't care how big my company is. Every single check I sign or comes through, and I authorize." And I take that with me. I'm like, even with IABD, as you know, I trust the staff, but I need to know and have my pulse on what the heartbeat of the organization, which is the pocketbook. And so that is one thing I'm like, I'm gonna sign every check. I need to know what's going out and then also what's coming in. So thank you for sharing that information. All right, so we're going to move into the next part of our conversation, which has some fun to it. 2 truths and a lie. We're going to use our polling mechanism, which is great.
I'm going to actually sideswipe you just a bit. This is Teresa from IABD co-host. Hope you all are enjoying yourselves. We're actually going to engage you all to use our chat function. Our poll, internet is crazy and in the world, and our polling function is not necessarily working with us. So we're going to ask you all to respond in the chat. Denise is going to give you some fun facts about one of our participants, and we look forward to having you all engaged. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Taran. Yes, co-host Taran Moore. He's our programs manager. He's back here holding me up while we're doing this. Okay, so here we are with the questions. This is around Marjani, 2 truths and a lie. Here we go. I have a son. I graduated from college at 19 years old. I majored in African American studies. So which one is the lie? I have a son. I graduated from college at 19 years old. I majored in African American studies. Place your answers in the chat. All right. Folks are saying major, graduated at 19, graduated at 19. Anybody else? Any takers? Oh, I have a son, graduated at 19, major. Wow, everyone's got graduated at 19, graduated at 19. So, Marjani, it looks like the majority of the folks are saying you graduated at 19. What is the lie?
That I majored in African American studies.
Everyone I know, they're like, what? Yeah. So you graduated from college at age 19? Oh, you are a brainiac. I love it. I love it. That is great. That is great. And you have an amazing young man who I know loves you dearly. So thank you for that. Wow. Okay. I didn't know when you sent those, I was like, wow, she came out of college at 19. That's great. That's really great. So really quick, did you skip grades? How did that happen?
I skipped. A little bit of a story, so I won't go there, but I skipped and then moved to New York 2 weeks after graduation.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Wow. Your parents really trusted you. My mom, I don't know, she would let me go to New York at age 19.
Oh, yeah.
Love to say that.
Yeah. 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 Okay. So here we're going to go into our second set of questions. I'm going to pull one from Ms. Hope Boykin, which I think this is actually a really good conversation for right now. So what is wrong with this current teaching system during the pandemic? What is wrong with this current teaching system during the pandemic?
Would you like me to start with my?
Yes, I would love for you to start with your answer, because I know you're getting ready to say a whole bunch, and I'm ready.
Well,
I am so ready.
There's some things that I think are amazing about it. I've been called into cocktail parties, events that I probably would have never seen people face to face, and I think that is amazing. But once again, as dance artists, as artists who are in, I believe, the bottom rung of the art field, the people who don't put a value on us, or we don't force our value onto them. Everyone is giving dance away for free, and I am not okay with it. I'm not. It hurts me to see all of this intellectual property, this love of work, just going, and people feel entitled. Where is your class? Where is the class you're giving? $1 for the 50 people who come into your Instagram live. You know, some people have thousands of people in their classes daily. 50 cents, some acknowledgement that what you are getting did not just come overnight, that the people who are honoring us as, you know, during this time of isolation, who are honoring us with their information, have spent years and years and years gaining strength, gaining studying, working, and then they give it to you, and it's just expected with nothing on the back end. And I know I have friends who are composers, and they put their classes in formats where you have to at least donate something. I think we have to honor our dance people, because to me that's where it is. It's not so much about not feeling like I want to share or they want to share, but we still should be honored like everyone else.
Mhm.
So agree. Marjani?
I completely agree. I mean, the online platform is very tricky because we really want to encourage free and open access to the web, right? And we want to encourage free and open access to knowledge and information because it offers an avenue to liberation and to power. And we have to, and I agree completely, Hope, we have to get more astute about our cooperative economics. Like, how do we organize so that we can be clear about what we're investing into? And I have noticed that the classes that I am taking online, from my yoga classes to floor bar to, to even what it is that I'm streaming just at my little bar in the living room, are all with people that I know and already trust and would be taking class with anyway.
Right.
And so it's not as much as a leap for me to drop $10 in their Cash App because I would be dropping it into their institution. And so relationship is super important here. I agree. And while I have no idea how to give more structure for that, I do think that there's something to organizing, whether it's with the institutions that we were teaching at, the organizations that we were teaching at, or whether it's amongst ourselves as artists. And I completely agree.
Well, it's something we're grappling with at IABD too. And I just want to read, someone in the chat mentioned, we certainly cannot be afraid to demand acknowledgement of the work we do. But I must admit the guilt that I lay on myself by saying I am taking money at such a time as this makes me hesitant, and completely agree. It is a question of, how far do we go? Like, what are the limits or the limitations that people currently have financially? I find it interesting, as soon as COVID-19 kind of really hit and people realized, oh my gosh, or we acknowledged there was finally a global pandemic happening and playing out here in the US. IABD kind of, our membership flatlined, like there was nothing coming in. And typically during this time of the year for the organization, we'll see some membership dollars. But as soon as I saw like nothing, within a week's time, usually there's, a few that we'll be able to see. I said, this is really hitting people. They're making some very serious decisions about their financial positioning right now. And so what can we do? How do we respond? How can we help? How can we be of service? That's where we reinstated the emergency fund, because right away, my emails, the DMs, all of that just started, blowing up. And I'm like, okay, people are hurting. We've got some serious bandages coming off here. And we need to be able to respond. But at the same time, when I started to see Zoom and a lot of our online platforms just pick up, as Hope mentioned, with free, like free. And I'll go right to Debbie Allen. She has, that Wednesday, I think she's still doing the free, but then behind there's another platform, her virtual platform, where they're even charging, I think at the most $3 for the classes. So there's still value to what we are giving away that needs to be honored and acknowledged, because yes, dance is, and I agree, at the bottom of the poll here when it comes to, that pecking order of our arts within, this context of the US. And so it's very difficult. It is very difficult for the free. And I'm like, but this is, you've worked so hard. This is your craft. We have to have some type of, we've got to place value on it. And I think, Hope, that actually, rolls into the second question that you state. What value do we need to place on ourselves, and why is that so important to do so?
I mean, I understand the balance. I completely do. You know, you talk about, you know, our age. I remember when, you know, class was $10, and that was a struggle to pay as a person who was studying in New York. And you were like, $10, that's a full like day's meal or something. So I know classes now are super expensive, and it's not so much even when I go to teach a master class or set a work on a company. It's not that I don't, I have a all or nothing rate. That is not it at all. I just want you to acknowledge that you respect me enough to say, this is what I have for you. I hope this can work. Because I've never said no. Never once have I ever said no, except someone says, this is the fee. And I was like, well, no, that's not enough. You have 75 people in this room in a studio that you own. No way, you know, like in my head, that doesn't work business wise. So someone is in their home, they own their space, or they own their studio, then I feel like that cut is like 75, 25. You know what I mean? You've got to pay your rent, but if you're bringing me in, you're charging $25 a head. That should be, you know, like there has to be a way that we think like a businessman thinks, a businesswoman thinks, a business person thinks. We've got to focus in on what our importance is. I compare it to, I'm all things Apple. I tell people I could sell Apple to anyone. I could sell Apple to Steve Jobs. Sorry, but you know, I could. And I'm an early adopter. And when I got my AirPods, I got them because I trust Apple. I know they're going to make something and put it out. I'm going to put them in my ear. Some people said, oh, you know, you just like the new thing. Okay. But I also know that they put a value on that product. So many people, I'm not getting those. They're too expensive. All of those people I know who said that have them now. I understood the value. Whether I could afford the value at the time is one thing, but I understood that that was the value that this organization, corporation put on this product. And that's what I want. I have a value on my product. My product is older now. My product doesn't work as well as it used to, but it has more information. That's all I want you to acknowledge. You might not be able to have everything. You might not be able to afford this. Just talk to me about it. But we've got to honor one another. I've never called you, for all of you listening, whenever I have an issue, I text Denise. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning. She's like, yes, I'll talk to you at 7:30. And you've never once turned me down for something. You've always given me your time. You've always given me, you know, whatever I've needed. And that's whenever I say anything to anyone about you, that's your value. I know the kind of person you are, the kind of woman you have taught me to be. So I just feel like we've got to know how that works, not just with business, but with our morals, with our ethics, with everything. And so it's not saying no. The balance is not saying no. The balance is just you saying, what can I share with you? Because I believe you're worth something. Yeah. Sorry.
No, thank you.
Hopping off platform.
Marjani.
No, I'm hearing what you're saying, Hope, and I'm in agreement. And I'm thinking about the opportunity that organizations and institutions have to, I know, #nimble, you know, like I feel like I have a similar mantra happening, but they have an opportunity to collaborate with the artists in a way that is affirming for both of those entities. And because I believe that we as artists are innovating out of necessity, and also because it's what we do, right? So we're innovating with these platforms, and the organization or institution gives us the nod that we need for folks to trust what's going to come out of us, right? And so then so in the nimbleness, like you said, there's the opportunity to not demand a $20 hard thing wherever it is that you're coming from, but in these donation or in these sliding scale ways for folks to enter, is that one, because you're online, you can get way more people than you could in a room. In a building, you have a max capacity. So online, you've got a lot of people who can join in on one thing, and that just gives us an opportunity in this notion of abundance to be more equitable in our relationship to the form. So I think that's certainly, I would say, how Everett and I are looking at our work and the continuity of it, or the perpetuity of our work, is by collaborating with organizations that we were in presenting relationships with or touring relationships with to re-envision the thing. We'll come up with the ideas. You come up with how organizationally you can restructure yourself to support. Because as an organization, you give people the okay. You're letting people know that you, because of your history of presenting good work, because of your history of offering dope classes and dope teachers, this is a person, or this is an artist or a set of artists who are doing good work. And that gives people that sort of sifter that they need through all of what it is that's on the web. I just think we have to communicate and organize with one another, and also stay nimble and release some of these hard structures around how much a thing costs.
Yeah. A couple of comments here in the chat, and then also from Facebook as well. It's sad because the bull was let out of the gates from the get-go. So our humanity kicked in and there were free offerings. We have backed ourselves in a corner. However, it gives us a strong argument for the power of the arts. Keep your data to be used later. That, very true. And then someone also mentioned, and I'm here with you on this one, gym memberships and yoga Pilates studios are closed, right? So we can't go to the physical place. And so can dance actually capture some of that income that we are now utilizing on the web? You know, people are paying $12, $40 for fitness classes online. Is there an entry point for dance to actually take part in some of those opportunities for our artists to earn some type of income in the, you know, digital highway, as I say, or on the digital highway?
I think so, because it has to also be in community. I have a lot of friends who will put themselves in a package. This morning's workout, or there's yoga at this time, and, you know, Horton at this time, meditation at this time. And if there are those platforms, and I know them, I know of them, I haven't done research, so I won't call their names, but there are those platforms that if enough of us would not think straight and narrow, but would think in community to say, hey, here's a dance festival.
Yeah.
And then the festival starts with, here are all the classes that you can take in this dance festival. And they're $5. I mean, or they're, you know, it's $20 for, you've got 3 days to take as many classes. I mean, I have no idea. I'm just throwing out, I'm throwing things out, but I feel like it's possible to do that if we are not single-minded and in competition. I hate to say it like that, but.
No, that's true. That's reality.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's funny. I was thinking about like the organization blackfitness.com, Black BLAQUE fitness.com, and I'll put it in the chat if you like.
That's great.
But it's just like a dope collective of fitness folks and dance, you know, who offer dance and capoeira and, you know, kickboxing, and they have organized themselves onto a single platform where people can return and return over again and pay for their classes. So you've got an organization here, you know, that has adjusted to the streaming. They were opening up, I think, a building or a space in New York. And immediately when COVID-19 happened, they went back into conversation, into incubation about how to rearrange their thinking, recognizing that people are going to need to stay in their bodies and stay fit. And so I really love thank you, Mike. Yep. So I really love, Hope, that you mentioned this idea of collaborative or collectivizing, so that people have sort of like a one-stop shop where they can get what they need.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Thinking about that for IABD.
Yay!
One other thing, it's not even so, like, if I knew that I was in a platform to teach and that these funds were going someplace else, I would still be okay with that. As long as I knew that something was being directed to something I believed in. a young student going to college, you know what I mean? Or a charity. You know, as long as someone else understands that we have value and that value should be honored.
Yeah. I'll have to say, because I know Omar Ingram is shaking his head and going, we had this conversation earlier when when this epidemic, you know, hit. Omar did suggest IABD reach out to some of our members and people in the field to offer classes, you know, on our platform. And initially I said no, because of kind of this conversation. I wanted to make sure that the service org was not competing, because there's that word, you know, competition, with people who really needed the access to funding for survival. It's just what you mentioned, Hope. You know, I was still in a position to be financially set, so I'm going to give way to someone who really needs the access and the opportunity. And I felt very strongly, again, at the beginning of this pandemic, I was like, ooh, I want us to sit back, because I don't want to get in the way of people having this opportunity. But then as I'm kind of seeing it play out, and I'll reference the Teddy Riley babyface Instagram. Some people need some help on these platforms. So, you know, there's that. So how could we be of service in that way? I don't know. We're still talking these things out amongst ourselves and the staff, but you know, we raised some conversation and some ideas here as well. So for some of you all who don't know about the babyface babyface and Teddy Riley thing, go to Instagram. I think you can still find clips of it, and there's plenty of memes.
I had an Instagram live today because the dancers in the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater are trying to share with our audiences about our personal selves. And we had some internet issues. And there's nothing you can do about it when all the world is online in the middle of the day. And someone put in the comments, uh-oh, Teddy Riley. And I was like, no. It's hilarious.
I love it. Denise, there was one other thing I was thinking as you were talking is, so my major was business. And all of this, that's what my degree is in, business.
Oh.
And I was thinking that there's still this factor of customer loyalty. Like, I think organizations in feeling helpless, they forget, like, there's this huge membership that if IABD says these are the folks who are teaching Horton, Graham, you know, these are the folks who are teaching these forms, or come learn, you know, come work with us. Like, if IABD is saying it, that's going to draw a whole nother kind of thing. And I hear you that it would be in competition with folks who are doing it on their own. But again, that's where customer loyalty comes into fact, because I'm taking class with folks who I've been taking class with no matter what. And so those things, and if I'm tight, I'm going to stream it for free on YouTube anyway. So this idea that we have to, you know, this idea that we have to police each other, or that we have to try to find a way to set up boundaries, is actually, I think, a polemic relationship to what is happening. Rather, we can understand exactly what our place is in the community and step into that and be in relationship with one another as artists and as organization to really use that to galvanize our people.
Okay, thank you. This was great. All right, so Taran, do you want me to do the next game or move on to the next question? I wasn't quite sure about you.
Sorry, we'll move on to our next section. We have a little fun coming up a little bit later, so we'll catch up with Hope's facts in that next game section.
Okay, great. So we're going to be talking about money future, right? And we've heard the term innovation, collaboration, partnerships, you know, all of those great words that kind of bring us together and then also have us thinking and working with people to create what we do. And so a question posed by Marjani was, how are we innovating with new technologies to grow the field, to grow the aesthetic, and to build on the diverse yet woven legacies of Black dance? And this is a conversation that's been going on for a minute, but now we are literally thrown into the digital space in a very real way. And so again, you know, I think that connection and meshing of the form with the technology, we're seeing it play out like right now in real time. So thoughts around that, Marjani, Hope. It's your question, Marjani, if you want to start, and then we'll bring Hope in. Or Hope, I think she's got some thoughts, so she's sitting up. Go ahead, Hope.
Well, actually, I'm trying something new today. I'm in a trial period for, I don't know if you can see at the corner of my screen, for this thing called Ecamm Live. And they have a 14-day trial. And my actual camera is connected to this call. So my resolution, my clarity, my ISO is the same.
Yeah.
First time I'm trying it. So I was nervous that it would break out, but there's something about knowing that there's a presentation. You know, I hate this watermark, you know, like I'd much rather it have Hope Boykin on it, but the features of this thing are unbelievable. So if there were another live stream, you know, IABD's logo can flash across. The comments that you're getting from Facebook can pop up on the screen. It is unreal. Now it's a membership, there's a learning curve. I'm just doing this right now. I happen to be in good light. This is a lens that I know lets in a lot of light. I am a techie. I've got a camera closet. I believe that making films can, you know, change. Making dance film is something that I'm really, really interested in. But all of a sudden, I had all of the tools to do this work. When we were just in pandemic and Ailey was trying to figure out how they were going to do this first streaming of Revelations, I said, well, I can teach a Revelations inspired class. So I moved my furniture. I set up my camera. I had my iPad screen mirroring, you know, Ailey images on the back. And I talked my way, I was mic'd, like I was able to do it all because I already had a little bit of understanding. So how do we teach people about lighting? How do we teach young people about where to put the camera, composition? That's going to help us lift our value, our production value. That's the word I'm looking for. And it's not easy. You know, I mean, it doesn't always work because it's the internet. If something goes out, I'm gone. But I'm trying to find, you know, this way. It seems like it looks nice. If I have to stay right here. If I get closer, it's going to get blurry. If I go back, it's going to get blurry. But I'm trying to find, you know, like I said, I'm on this 14-day trial to see if it's worth me adding to this process. If that makes any sense. It's sort of in the technology thing.
Absolutely. It does. It totally does. And I'm jealous. Now I got to look up this Ecamm thing.
Yeah, you look really good. You look really good.
You do.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jealous. I think I'm speaking to this whole jealous thing because for me, like one of the things that comes up is like our relationship to scarcity sometimes can bring up this kind of competition thing that's not real. But because we believe that you have to be the first to do it, in spite of the fact that we're artists, that we're innovators, and we know that we all have a voice to offer the thing, sometimes in feeling like that, we rush. And that's not, and I think I've been really meditating on and really appreciating what I've gotten from taking my time. So on that, I really appreciate that Mike A said in the chat that he's working on augmented reality and virtual reality and dance. That's exactly what Everett and I as 7 Names are working on this next piece. And we're really taking our time. We're working with the AR developer and we're just really taking our time on the storytelling because there are some like really essential things about this thing that are timeless, that transcends the medium. And for us, that's really like the potency and the power of the story. And that these are just ways to tell our story and to keep it moving forward and to drop not drop, but to speak our lineage, to drop that into the conversation, that this is where I come from, this is what I'm building on. And so I'm like super excited about, I personally am super excited about augmented reality. I also am, you know, looking at all the ways it shows up in these little apps for these quick moments to share what it is that we're thinking. The way that Instagram is giving us an opportunity to like be in the moment with each other. And so I think that that question around how are we integrating new technologies to continue to be to innovate on the entire notion of Black dance is that this is what we've always done. We've always been innovators. Yeah. We've always been pioneers. You know what I mean? Everything that's represented in our music and everything that's represented in our bodies and forms. Yeah. So these technologies give us an awesome avenue.
Yeah. I mean, the you know, the saying to make a way out of no way, that's the real thing. It is, that's part of the innovation, definitely. I want to back up in the chat for a moment because I saw a comment and I think you referenced it. It was Mike. Hi, Mike. I owe you an email. I know. But the virtual reality and the augmented reality, you just touched on that, Marjani. I'm curious about the piece and the work. Like, how can you talk just a little bit about your process? I'm still stuck on, you know, the unicorn. I'm still trying to get you to IABD with that. I'm promising you that is like, it is. Let me say anyway, but can you talk, because you've moved on now, but can you talk just a little bit about this new work and of course, you know, the intersection of technology here? This is kind of interesting.
Well, thank you for asking, Denise. Yeah. So again, I'm working, so for the past couple of years, Denise, I've been working with my partner who's a composer. But what was happening when we would make the work is, again, in this relationship to individualism and, you know, whatever, people would be like, oh, Marjani, your work. And I'm like, well, it's really a partnership. So we finally decided to name the partnership just so people could understand how collaborative the work is. And we're calling ourselves 7 Names.
I love it. Yeah.
And so this work, A Prophet's Tale, is what we're calling it now. I'm still pushing for profit because I think we only need one word. But it's talking, you know, it's really speaking to the ingenuity of MCs or lyricists as like just extraordinary architects in the form coming, you know, I keep connecting what it is they do to this ancient relationship griot lineage. And I know that that's a super weighted conversation to make. And so rather than land there, we're just drawing on a lot of different historic and fantastical references, like the unicorn, like the samurai, like Rumi in particular, to just sort of help people identify the power of what the MC lyricist does within the form of hip hop, but just even as a form, even as a structure. And so we're working with Cisa Bueno right now, an AR developer, to help us sort of illuminate or to communicate the mysticism of this practice. I think the spiritual prowess of Black folk gets a little lost on folks. And so if we can just kind of illuminate it in our craft, just to show people like what our alchemy, part of the mystic abundance of our alchemy is through these, you know, through animation of the body, but also through the animation of the technology that is surrounding the storytelling, that would be really cool. And so we're working with Cisa on that. And we're also, you know, looking at filmmaking as the other avenue to sort of help us tell this really powerful story. And so that's really what the work is. Let me be concise, shut that down. You got it.
Okay. All right. And Hope, I know, what do you have happening with HopeBoykinDance? Because you're all over, but what are you doing, or what was in the works before we all had to go shelter in place? What might still be in the work in your living room, actually.
Some of it is still in the works, but it's been difficult. I was documenting my final season with Ailey, and planning that May 10th would be this big performance, you know, trying to get rights and people's approval to put a camera here, or, you know, going through all of the front door things. That I was not going to ask for forgiveness. I was definitely asking permission because I didn't want things to be taken. So I was reaching out to the Dancers Union, to the cruise, you know, like all of the things that are involved. And you just don't know when your last performance has happened. And I had it, and it was heartbreaking. And just, I mean, as of now, I've had it, you know. So I'm trying to figure out how to continue. And so helping, I'm on the content committee for this ALE All Access. So I'm a part of creating in this way. And then we work, you know, with dancers, and our dancer committee is trying to find ways to create. So that's really lifting my spirits. And then I say all the time, how do I reassess my life and clock in and punch into Hope Incorporated the way I've been punching in to someone else's Incorporated for over 25 years of dancing professionally. And the hardest thing to do is to wake up and work for myself. And but I'm working on it. I'm writing a lot. I think something new will come from that. And I am making I have 2 treatments for dance film that has nothing to do with me. I'm behind the camera. And then I think that, and then one that's the documentary, or documenting my final time with Ailey and the injuries. And then there's another one that it will just be my words and my movement together.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm officially saying I want to partner with you on something. So I want, you know, let's,
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that. Marjani knows I'm coming for Marjani. I'm coming for Hope. Yes, let's do this. Let's do this.
You know, I got to, I set a work on Dallas Black, and it's the last work I was able to set and see. And a large portion of it is original writing. And the fact that I was able to put my dance daughter on stage, that's Layla Duke, but put her on stage dancing to my words, like it was a surreal moment. And I didn't, you know, I was like, this is chancy, because I'm telling everyone about me like this unzipping that I asked for my students. That was what I was doing for myself, and I didn't realize it. I was like, oh, I'm telling too much. But so seeing it like that, I want to see it continue to come to life, but on film.
Yeah.
In a different, you know.
I saw a clip and I was just like, wow, Layla got her dream. She would talk about that at Howard. I was a teacher of Layla Dukes as well, and she would talk about she wanted to dance a solo and the work of Hope Boykins professionally. So I'm so glad that happened.
She speaks really well.
Yes. All right, so we're going to transition again. We have a second set of questions that 2 truths and a lie that are from Hope Boykin. We're going to ask everyone to use the chat to answer. And I'm going to find the questions. Here they are. The first statement from Hope Boykin: I'm almost 50. The second statement: I am retiring after 25 plus years. And the third statement: I'm a real saver. So I'm almost 50. I am retiring after 25 plus years. I'm a real saver. Which one is the lie? Last one from Diana. I'm almost 50. I'm a real saver. So we got one of each so far. Real saver. This is so funny to see these come in. Real saver. Someone said laugh out loud. Real saver. I'm almost 50. Any other takers? Oh, real saver. Someone said, are you really almost 50? OMG. From Facebook, Saver. Almost 50 from Facebook. Wow, you have a variety here. So I'm gonna say Hope Boykin, which is the lie?
That I'm a real saver. That I would be transparent, and everyone should know that just because we love our art doesn't mean we should not take care of our business. And I did not do that properly or soon enough. And there's so much to learn and so much to know about what to do with your money. I remember someone told me, if you just put $5, maybe someone I used to work with, they put $5 or $10 away for every revelations that they performed. For 20 years being in one company doing a signature work, that would have been like a down payment on something. But that's not what I did. So it was always, I assumed I would have, I assumed, there'd be this husband and kids in a garage, and I'm still in New York. I mean, I'm a renter. Like my spirit is a renter. There's some people who want, I have a renter spirit. I don't want to be in charge of, I just call you and tell you that something's wrong and then you fix it. Like I'm okay with that. But ideally, I wish I had done things differently sooner, because then I would know, it's almost like, it's like knowing that I needed to also cross train. I learned that super late in my life, but now I know it. So what do we tell and what do we teach young people about putting their money away, about paying their bills on time, about, credit's okay as long as you pay right away. Oh, I should write that down.
Yeah.
As long as you pay right away, like because you want to build up something, but you still need to be able to take care of it. And I made way too many mistakes. I could write them down. I won't. I used to think when sorry to make it this so general and popular, but people would say, oh, which, Sex and the City character are you? I'm Sarah Jessica Parker because I could sell bags and shoes and then buy something. Unfortunately, that's how I was thinking. Oh, I look cute. Now I can't even stretch my knees, so I can't wear those shoes. What good are they to me if I'm, you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like we have to be better about how we teach young people about money. I'm done.
Yeah, and someone said that those things are not always taught in Black families as well, and that's very true, depending on that family, the family involvement. So we are entering the last 15 minutes of our discussion, and we're going to open this up to the community that's here. So we're going to ask everyone to come off of their video so we could see your beautiful faces. And we're going to open this up for questions from those who are joining us. So y'all can come off video. I love this part. It just goes blink, 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 blink.
I'm sorry for this.
Coming off video?
I don't know how to turn off my notification sound. I know how to add a camera, but I don't know how to do one thing. Sorry about that.
All right. I'm trying, but I can't. I think, Taran, if you're in the background. Oh, there we go.
Background. Let me know if you're having trouble. I'll do it for you.
All right. No one else is coming off? We only have a few people. Hi, Sakina. Hi, Andrew. Hi, Karen.
Hello.
There's Tiffany, our PR marketing manager. Hey, there's Omar. Thank you, Omar. We knew you'd be on the couch. There's Kristopher. Francine, you're not coming on? Trying but can't. Lawrence Lemon is saying he can't. There's Michaela Ware.
Can you get me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it won't let me.
It won't let you? I just asked to start audio. It says Francine will start video later.
Oh, oh.
Great. Carol said no.
Oh.
All right. So really quickly, there's a question here from Bakari that was an earlier conversation. He's on Facebook. And it's interesting how geography reflects realities differently. How did race factor into knowing the business end of dance? I'll repeat that. It's interesting how geography reflects the reality differently. How did race factor into you knowing the business end of dance? Hey, Avery. Diana. Mike.
I don't know if I could necessarily say that it was something that I would attribute to one way or the other. I feel like I had people who just didn't want me to fail at certain projects, so they would overly interject their opinion. Don't do that, or this will be a mistake. Even my mother, you know, I as a truth teller in my life, she's like, well, what are you doing? Or if I had an issue, where is it going? And I'm like, why are you asking me all these questions? And then those questions were the questions I even started to ask myself. What am I doing with the funds? Where is it going? Will it benefit me later? But I don't necessarily think, I mean, going from being in, working when I was with Philadelphia, I was able to be a part of the organization very differently. We all contributed, and there was a time in Philadelphia when I didn't perform because I was waiting. She was waiting for me to get my body right for her, and so. But that I still worked in the. I still went to rehearsal and took class, but I worked in the office. I answered phones. I filled out things. So that was she was building. Joe Myers Brown was building lessons for me that transferred over into later life. She would, whenever she knew I was doing a project or got in a new position, she would call me and ask me, are you getting paid enough? She, you know, so I have the truth tellers who are making sure on the back end, but it's, or, you know, helping me before I make the mistake, but I don't necessarily recall it being specific.
Thank you for that. So questions. On the here want to ask a question. I think, what do we do? The raise your hand on the chat, or I guess that's not enough people we can kind of, I think, manage who's speaking. No questions?
Well, if it's useful, I can speak to the last question.
Okay, go ahead, Marjani.
I was gonna say that working with Urban Bushwoman, there are two places. There was one being in an observer relationship to the way the business was handled as a touring member, but then there's also the relationship that the company had with the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond, which offered us a really rich, historically rooted critical racial analysis that gave us a lot of information about the way our organization was functioning. And the way that we can look at our actions across the board, whether we were in the studio or looking at how to arrange the business around our work, that for me really grounded us into a kind of like a humanizing way of working that that confronted some of the things that we might be learning about how to act. So someone had mentioned in the chat, the transactional versus relational ways of conducting business. Forgive me, I can't remember who that was, but that's really fundamental to the analysis that we are given through the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond. And I feel like it's been really beneficial for me. I think it also helps me to work more strategically with white folk around around my work, around the stories that I want to tell. And what I mean by strategically is we can have honest conversations about the ways that we take in the world, and with a lot of respect around the fact that we weren't raised the same way around values or the way that we take on the world. We didn't deal with the same things. And that kind of honesty is just like, for me, has been like really transformative and helpful when I'm working with folks of a different background, a different racial background, and has also set a sort of a limit for me in terms of who I will work with, is our ability to just kind of have that kind of honesty. So those are some of the ways that race has impacted my business.
Yeah, that was Kayla who mentioned that she's on Facebook, but I also see she's here too on the Zoom. The less transactional and more relational, for sure.
Yes. Hi. I have a question about, I guess, just possible advice for young dancers, but also just how you went about at a young age, probably like while in college, but also outside of college, deciding like, I guess, what business or what gigs to take or what things to do at a time where you're still trying to prove yourself and still trying to make a name for yourself in the industry, but you also need funds and you want to be able to make money and you also want to create work and things like that. So what's the balance of like there, like, I guess the threshold where you decide like, this is a gig that I should take, or like, maybe this is something that like I should be shooting for more, or I should decide to do for more, or like they should be paying me, or like maybe this is worth doing for free. Like, how do you decipher between making those decisions?
Great question. Who wants to take that one on?
I learned that from Adrian Vincent James while I was at Howard University. I was with him for a DC Gypsies event, and we went to this performance that he'd set up, and I was a student, and they didn't have the money when we got there, and that was the agreement. And he said, "We're not dancing until you pay us." And I was like, "Really?" I was shocked. And he said, "No, that was not the agreement. The agreement is you pay us when we arrive and then we perform. We're here, we have our costumes on, I have the cast." And I was like, "Really?" I mean, I was shocked about that. But then I also knew that he didn't try to give me an experience. And I think I read that in Dance Magazine once, that someone said you can't cash an exposure check. So I always pay people. I mean, I can't, it's something online, so I'm sure you can find it, because it said exposure check, that I always pay young people. I may not pay them the same as I pay someone who's been dancing for 10 years, but I always pay. I make sure that if I don't have rehearsal money, I bring food, I bring snacks. Everyone's time is worth it. I do believe that dancers should pay dues to a certain extent. The longer you've been working, the more you know. The more you know, the more you can contribute. You know, just because your body is functional and able doesn't mean that you can offer me insight into my work if we're in a rehearsal space, but someone else who may not be able to move as much can. So I want to honor all of those bodies, all of those people, and I want to honor them with funds from the beginning. I don't think anyone's time is free, but I do believe you have to work for your status. You know, I did a video for this group Snarky Puppy, and there were two of my coworkers in it, 3 second company members, 3 students. And that's how I pay them, in order of their experience. And I think that that's legitimate. You know what I mean? Because we're honoring them, letting them know that their time and their efforts and their bodies are worth it. Because we slip and fall and it could be over. And then you tried to say it was just for the experience. Oh, and sorry, last thing, I promise, I know I do the talking, but someone called me and told me that they paid to go to an audition, you know, like the $25 audition fee. And then they were accepted and told they wanted to be an apprentice, but they wouldn't get paid. Should they take the job? And I told her no.
Everybody shaking their head.
I gave her $25 back because I was angry that they took her money and then wanted her time for free. I couldn't wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
Jumping off platform. Sorry.
Lawrence raised his hand, but I do want to just, Lawrence, before you jump in here, there was a question from Facebook that came in from Kim. I'd like to add on to how race and being female in the dance field has impacted your career. Do you see it as a struggle or a benefit? If either, please elaborate. We just have a few more minutes, so if you could compact, and then I want to make sure we get to Lawrence's question. Marjani, you want to take a stab at it, or?
Yeah, I think I was thinking, and I'll try to be as quick as I can. I think I was thinking in some ways it's a great benefit, but in the light or in the structure that is about competition, it's whack. It's been whack being female and Black. You know what I mean? Because, because male dancers are fewer, supposedly. I think less so now, but definitely when I was coming up. So, but if we're walking into a time where competition is less important as much as it is the refinement of one's voice, or even the time that they've been putting into the field, then I feel like being a Black woman, a Black womb holder, a Black mother is like my flag right now.
Womb holder.
Yes, I like that one too. Y'all dropping some of these, this chat. Woo! I have some stuff for the future. This is great. Hey, Lawrence, go ahead with your question.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you, Denise and IABD, for putting on this conversation. Thank you, Marjani and Hope, for all the great information and the transparency. Hi, Hope, how you doing? Really quick. So I know the conversation is about money, and I think it was on the other town hall, one of the other conversations, Aquel had made a mention about the transparency that one of the brothers had put on the exposing like what he charges and kind of getting us on an even playing field for us as we're building from freelance artists to more mature artists or companies that are growing. Is there a way, or maybe IABD could create one if we don't already have one that I'm not aware of, but just a way we can know how to base our rates and to say what would be fair and how we should be, what we should be charging for as we're moving forward. And also that I can help others to share their information out too.
Actually, I'm going to respond, and then you ladies can jump in here. This did come up at our last connective series discussion, and Bakari, who is an artist in Canada, actually emailed me and texted or chatted me up about this kind of rate, an established rate card. It is something that we are actually starting to work on. And figure out some type of sliding scale, because I have to honestly say the rates are just so vast and people do charge differently. But if we can present some guidance, right, around money and fees, that is, I think, what we are shooting for here. But it is something that is in the works that we started discussion around last week. And Kristopher McDowell, who's on this call with me, he and I have been kind of started working with the managers, presenters, artists community around this subject. So if you might be interested in being on that journey with us, I'm going to reach out to you as well, because it'll take a team to kind of put this together.
Most definitely. Thank you.
Sure.
I didn't know if you were trying to close now or not, because I know it's 4.
It is 4. So I was actually looking at the comments here. Mike just put something in the chat for everyone to take a look at around fees. Thank you, Mike. You gonna say something?
Yeah, I know what he was talking about because I had to do a fee analysis when I was working for the Museum of Contemporary Art Chicago, and the organization in Canada is called CADA. And there's also a visual art version of this that that you would, even though we're dance practitioners, you would still want to look at the visual art version as a comparable. And I'll send that to you, Denise, to push out to the group. But it tells you how much to pay a dancer per day. It's kind of like the closest that you come to Glassdoor for dance. I've not been able to find an American equivalent though for dance, but yeah. 2 branches of CADA in Canada publish their rates. So if you guys want to take those links and look at it, it's a starting point for the conversation.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
I was going to just say, as I didn't know if you meant for teaching or for paying artists, like if you go as an instructor or if you're trying to pay dancers. I wasn't sure of the distinction.
Paying dancers, yeah. So touring on the road, but again, as he mentioned, you know, Canada is going to be different from the U.S. because just the way the value, let's go there, of the arts is obviously coming to light right now. But yeah, it's some kind of guy. Marjani, I do want to respect your time. I got your note that you've got to go teach a grad comp class. So she's got responsibilities and things she's got to do. So I know you got to jump off, and it is 4:03. But I do want to thank you all so much for being here today. This has been an amazing conversation. You can continue, if you're an IBD member, this conversation online in our social link, which is a platform where we can continue the conversation virtually with one another. Taran, thank you so much for assisting today and being the co-pilot in this. Thank you to the staff, and of course, thank you to everyone who again joined our discussion, the Artist Connectivity Series. We're back again next week. And so, Taran, I think I'm gonna turn it over to you to plug next week, or Tiffany, plug those details for next week.
Quick question, Denise.
Oh, yes, Marjani.
Can we drop in our social media handles on the chat box?
Oh, absolutely.
Please do, yes. We would love the people to follow you all. We've had some dynamic guests. Thank you, Marjani. Thank you, Hope, for joining us. Thank you, Denise, for hosting us today. Thank you, IABD, for being the most dynamic team in the world. Thank you, Francine, for being on board with this journey. Thank you, Kristopher, for being on board with this journey. We're appreciative to all our partners and the team. Just some quick things. I'm going to show you my quarantine gear so you all can see me live in charge. Follow us on social media, IBD Inc. You know, keep the conversation going on there. Keep it going on Facebook. You know, this whole thing was live, so people got to see all of the wonderful conversation. Also, if you're an IABD member, tune in to IABD Connect. You know, we have a great forum there provided for our membership where you can share all the wonderful thoughts. We have some social media follow HopeBoykinDance, follow Kristopher McDowell, follow Marjani for It Works, follow all of the wonderful pages that were posted in the chat, and tune in next week. Kristopher McDowell will be hosting with some wonderful dynamic, sorry to put you on the spot, with some wonderful dynamic artists. We look forward to having you all at next week's conversation. Same great place. Same different dynamic conversation. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Hope.
Thank you.